All right. All right. Awesome. Well, Brother Jeremy, appreciate you hopping on today. And I know at the bottom right corner for anybody who watches this, his name's not Ryan. That's his son's. Just so everybody knows. But Mr. Jeremy, I appreciate you hopping on. So we're just gonna dive in. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, because I don't want to introduce you and say something wrong. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. Just tell us who you are, maybe a little bit of your background, and tell us about the ministry, God's got y'all in and what y'all have been doing for several years, and give everybody a background about it all.
Sure, appreciate the invitation too to come on and been looking forward to this. Jeremy Rowland is my name. I was saved at a church plant in Sarasota, Florida back in 1990. I was 18 years old and didn't go to church anywhere and was invited to go to this church plant near my house and went and thankful for a family who was really relentless on inviting me to go. So after
Amen.
about three invitations, I decided I would go with them. And anyhow, long story short, that's where I got saved, baptized, discipled, trained to be a soul winner. I mean, within 2 months, they had a soul winning program. There was probably only about 30 so people at that church plant, but every Thursday night they would train people. We go out, knock on doors, and all of that. And that's really how about 20 some of my family came to know the Lord
Wow.
by learning how to lead people to the Lord right away. And so, like one of my cousins, is a youth pastor now, he was saved through all of that. Obviously, my mother, my dad, all of that. So everything significantly that happened to my life spiritually happened through a church plant, an independent Baptist church plant. So everything, I got married there. I was ordained there to go into the gospel ministry. Went to go to college and seminary. Worked in a church for about 5 years, and the Lord was stirring me. This was back in 95, 96. The Lord was stirring me, and I had a burden to go into a city and to just preach the gospel and to see a church started. And I really didn't know what that was. Back in that day, I say that I'm not too old, but back in that day, there was no Bible college that had curriculum or a class or any concentration at all on church planting. It was almost like if you want to be a missionary, an evangelist, a pastor, we have some classes for that, but church planting, it just wasn't talked about. If you want to go plant a church, fine, but there's really nothing to guide someone in that direction. So I thought it was evangelism. I met with Dr. Bill Rice, and he said, "Man, hey, I think you're an evangelist. Come to the ranch. We'll train you to be an evangelist." So I did that, took my wife and two sons. We moved there. I was a staff evangelist for 2 years at the Bill Rice Ranch and loved it. Loved seeing people come to know Christ, traveling. But there was still there was a part of that calling that wasn't being met, and that was to see a church start. And again, didn't know who to ask, who to go to. The pastor I was saved under in Sarasota, he planted that church, um, but he worked a job and it was slow, and he didn't have a lot of insight. So I just started asking around, who's planting churches? What's going on? And back then, obviously, no real internet presence, no social media, nothing like that we have today. So I got a hold of one of my teachers at seminary, and he said someone wrote to college and seminary and said, if anybody's wanting to plant a church, send him my way. And so that was a letter from Baptist Church Planting Ministry, Dr. Earl Jessup. So I called him, met with him. He said, it sounds like God's leading you to be a church planter. And he told me right away, he said, I don't work with the church planter per se, I work with his pastor. So what church are you under? Who are you going to be sent out of? So I thought that was real important. I like that. I'm local church.
Yeah.
So he met with myself and my pastor and explained what the Ministry of Baptist Church Planting Ministry does, BCPM. And basically, it's a ministry that's been around since 1993 to help churches reproduce churches. And the example that I gave to you that led me to the ministry is exactly why it still exists today. Guys are called to plant churches. They have obviously some friends or some acquaintances who have done it. Here's some helps, here's some things I've learned. What we've tried to do over the years is bring all that information into a concise help as a ministry so that there is, if you go to our site, bcpm.org, you can go to resources. There are podcasts, there are articles, there are resources that help. We believe we're trying to help in every aspect of church planting, whether it's here in the States, Canada. We've helped 57 of the church plants we've helped with have been overseas and in different countries. And so over the 32 years the ministry's been around, we've tried to expand all of our knowledge, all of our wisdom, all of our helps to really help in every aspect of church planting. And so BCPM back then, that was 23 years ago, helped me start Bethel Baptist Church in Northport, Florida. The ministry worked under my pastor, and he had the authority, he had to say so, but it was there to make sure nothing fell through the cracks. And really, the overall mission of BCPM is to help churches reproduce healthy churches. And I say that because we've helped with 205 independent Baptist church plants now. 92% of those are still in existence in the last 32 years. And
Yeah.
many of them have reproduced more churches and so on. And so it's not just how many churches we can plant or, you know, a goal of 50 churches this next year or whatever. That's never been the goal because um, if numbers are your goal, you're going to have a problem with quality.
Yeah.
And we don't need any more church plants to die. The average church plant, 54% of all church plants will die before their second year in
Yeah.
America. And that is terrible. And so that kind of gives you an overview of my past, kind of gives you some insight on what our ministry does. We help with, there's basically 5 different stages of a church plant. And the first stage is the desire stage. And that's where a lot of church planters call me or their pastor, and they say, we've got a desire to do this. We have, or may not have, an area. We don't even know where. We just have a desire. And I can relate to that desire. That's something I had, like I said at the very beginning, but there was really no one to help guide me through that. And that's what our ministry does.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, awesome. And that kind of was leading to one of the questions. And so just to back up, I might have missed it, but how many church plants do you say y'all started? You may have already
We're,
said it.
yeah, we've helped with 205.
205 church plants. Wow, that's amazing. So as far as y'all's ministry, and I'm going to put a link down in the description of this YouTube video for anybody who wants to learn more about it and look more into it. So I'll put y'all's website link down there. But as far as providing, just so everybody knows in clarity, real quick. So what does y'all's ministry all provide for the church planner as far as that goes?
Yeah, so just right off the start, over the years, the strength of our ministry has not just been the information that we can give you as much as it is the consultation.
Yeah,
Our ministry has become more. Now we have plenty of information. If you want the 3 different budgets that go into a church plan, if you want a timeline, if you want a 3 month um, goal to saturate the area evangelistically and so on, if you want helps on design work, if you want helps on marketing in your area, all of that, building selection. Of course, we've got all that information, but the real strength is the consultation. So if a church planter is starting on deputation, which we have one right now, we're working with him. He's starting on deputation in January of 2026. So what does that look like for a church planter? How does that differ from a missionary going on deputation? What are some helps to think about? And so we cover all that through consultation, and that's true for every step. Now, getting when to move to the area. What are some good thoughts about your budget when you move to the area? How do you effectively start Bible studies and discipleship months before you have a first Sunday? Uh,
Yeah.
how and when do you start? Like, what are some good times of the year to start in certain areas? How to start? Just don't have a grand opening Sunday or preview Sundays or get acquainted meetings or like outreaches or so the consultation is that way. So you've asked, how do we help specifically? We help through the entire process. We have all the information, but it's the consultation. And I can't tell you
Yeah.
how many pastors have told me, not the church planners, just the church planners, but the pastors have said, "Wow, this has taken a load off of me to know that you are right there walking with us and you're thinking and you're advising on things that we would never even think of."
Yeah.
Um, and that's not a prideful thing on our part. In fact, it's a humbling thing because we have to make sure that not we're not missing anything.
For sure.
And
Yeah. And I think, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think what you're saying is more valuable than people realize. I think a lot of people probably do realize it, but the aspect is it's like anything in life. Like most people don't know what good looks like, you know. Somebody
Mhm.
else does, and a lot of people fail because of not knowing. And it's that being able to tell them, hey, listen, y'all, this is how you're supposed to do this, that saves them from the bumps of figuring out on their own. And okay, real quick, I just want to hop on here and tell you that GM Baptist Outreach is who sponsors this video. And I want to give you a brief description of who we are. So we help churches reach their communities and bring visitors in the doors of their church every single week with what's called the Digital Tract Ministry. And we're working with churches all across the country. We have 170 plus churches we're serving in rural areas, populated areas, also in 5 different countries around the world. And so it's amazing what God's doing with the Digital Tract Ministry. And we would love to help your church set this up as well. And so if you're curious about it and you want to know more about it and what it looks like set up for a church, you can find a demo video in the description of this video. You'll find a link to sign up for a demo video that walks you through the exact process of the Digital Tract Ministry. It also walks you through the financial side of things of what it looks like set up for a church. And so with that being said, super glad you're here. Sign up for that. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's going to allow us to put out a lot more valuable content for churches to help them with outreach and discipleship. So go ahead and enjoy the rest of the video, and we will see you on the other yeah, I
side.
mean, just that alone, like, and we're going to cover a lot of questions here in a minute. I'm going to start asking you some questions that, for every church planter that will be listening, or, that you might not be a church planter, but maybe you know someone who's a church planter. Share this video with them. We're going to have a lot of stuff we're going to cover that I believe are a lot of big topics among church planting today and just Christianity in general concerning
Mhm.
like deputation and, how does, as far as starting a church, what should a new church plant look like in behind the scenes, like operational wise. And I definitely want to cover that one because I think that's a big one. And I talk to church planners all the time and give them advice, whether they listen to it or not, I don't know. But give them
Right.
advice on my thoughts on as far as just from us starting a church. And for anybody that doesn't know, we started a church as well a little over
Mhm.
6 years ago. And the
Wow.
Lord's blessed, and we're building a new sanctuary. It's exciting, and so I wish I would have had Brother Jeremy here show me how to do it right when we started because we just threw a sign up and just started having churches, me and wife in there, and I was like, looking back, I feel like there's tons of things we could have done differently, should have done differently.
Well, and what you're saying is, and again, we're not here to say if you do it a certain way that everything will be fine, because every church plant is different. We're going into a new year soon, and the new year is going to be different economically,
Yeah,
politically, in every area of the country is different. Obviously, every country is different. And so we try to prayerfully walk with you through this process and say, okay, Here's some advice, here's some guidance that we've seen in areas like this, whatever. But there's two things I've never heard a church planter say. I've never heard a church planter say, I should not have taken all that time to prepare.
Yeah.
I have definitely heard the opposite. And by the way, you only get one birth. You only get one chance at starting this new work. Otherwise, if you fold up in a few months and leave, then you leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. It'll take years before they trust another independent Baptist, to start. The second thing I've never heard anybody say is, I should not have raised all that money. I have definitely heard the opposite. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said for proper preparation and so on.
For sure. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and dive in some of these questions, like the nitty-gritty questions. And I know the big one, and you done mentioned a little bit of it, financially wise. So when it comes to finances, especially and I know you said y'all work with missionaries as well. And there's like this two-headed opinion among Baptists and Christianity in general. You got a lot of guys who feel if you're starting a church in the States, you should just get a job. You have
Right.
tons of people like that. Now when we started our church, I just worked full time and did it. I didn't go on deputation, but it wasn't because of a conviction or an opinion. I just didn't know what deputation was. I didn't know how to go on
Right.
deputation, and so we just never went on deputation. So looking back, there was a lot of stuff when it came to time constraint,
Mhm.
exhaustion,
Mhm.
um, feeling like neglecting the church because of
Mhm.
working that I think if you didn't have to work would be very beneficial to be able to go full flung, full fledged with it, head first,
Right.
doing it. And so I'm not one of those guys who don't believe in deputation, but here's what I do know is I don't know anything about deputation myself personally.
Mhm.
So for all the guys that are like me, let's say they're wanting to start a church, like what do you think about deputation? How do you think someone should go about deputation? And then when it comes to the financial piece, what is that number? Like what is the number? And I'm sure it's different in every living area. Some places are probably cheaper than others. But what's your number in your mind of how that works?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Well, let me just say this and I know this from my pastors well and others who started churches back in the 70s and 80s. Our culture has definitely changed, even in the Bible Belt. You knock on doors 30 years ago, 7 out of 10 homes, they went to church somewhere as a kid or they had some type of background, right? Normally, 30 years ago, if kids came to the door, their parents were there or they had some type of family structure. That's not true for the majority today. In a lot of areas, 8 out of 10 homes have no church background. They have no knowledge of God. We cannot say any longer in the U.S. that every house has a Bible anymore. And then the breakdown of the family. Families are broken. A lot of families have no parental sense, no business or financial sense, no marital sense. They need a lot of help. And I don't mean that every home is like that, but they need a lot of help. So I say that because church planting and even pastoring now takes a lot more work to reach someone, to see them come into the church faithfully, start giving to the church faithfully, and start getting involved faithfully. It just takes more time. It takes more work, takes more encouragement. A lot of times it takes more meetings out of the church services, out of the church building, like in their homes, at coffee shops, things like that, where you're meeting with them one on one. A lot of guys um, are meeting with people throughout the week, and it may be weeks or months before those people ever come into the church because that's a bridge. It's difficult to cross for a lot of people who have no church background. So I'm setting this conversation up to say this that if you have a lot more time to give to reaching people, you will see more fruit from that.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, if you don't have to work a job, it's so much better because you don't want to neglect your family, you don't want to neglect the church, and you don't want to neglect your job, you know, of or something's going to give. If you work full time, something's going to give in those three. You're either going to have to cut back hours, which cuts back the finances, which puts more of a strain,
Yeah.
or you're going to have to cut back on your family, which you don't want to do, or you cut back on the church, which most guys, and there's only been a few in the last 10 years that we've worked with who've actually worked a full-time job. But the ones who have, all of them, 100% have said, I should not have done this. I should, because their churches stagnate. They level off at a certain number, 20, 30, 40 people, because they're working a job now. They just can't give that time that they need to.
Yeah.
So I do recommend raising the finances before you start, at least enough that you can live on for about 3 years. And if you can raise more for the monthly rent of the facility or whatever, that's better. That's best. So a lot of guys we work with now are raising the support they need. They are taking the 1 or 2 years to raise that support. Now, if you ask my opinion on that, on deputation, I think it's terrible. I don't believe that a guy needs to run his family and his vehicle in the ground and his health for 2 to 3 years trying to raise money to go plant a church. I believe that system needs to be fixed. I don't have all the answers, but a lot of guys are going to supporting missionaries for more. And some pastors sending out a missionary, they'll support him for half, like a part-time staff member would or whatever. So that's a whole other can of worms. But I do believe that having the finances set up before you start is important. Now, I say that, but then there are areas we've helped with numbers of church plants out west, especially in Montana recently. And some of those guys going to areas like Big Timber, Montana, or Butte, Montana, or not necessarily Bozeman, but some of the smaller Anaconda is coming up. We're working with a guy going there, Libby, Montana last year. These are smaller areas with a lot of ranchers, a lot of working people. And if you go to an area like that, I do suggest you have the finances in place to go there. But it's also good maybe to work 10 hours a week so that you're rubbing elbows with people who work. These are ranchers. These are people who work physically for a living in these areas. And it shows them, a lot of guys get a job at like the local hardware store, whatever. So they meet people all the time, but people see them as, okay, they're willing to work as well, and to pastor here. So deputation as a church planter, it's very similar to raising money for the mission field, a foreign mission field. The difference is you're raising money for a short period of time, so that a lot of churches now, which is great to see, will support a church planter for 2 to 3 years. So it's not indefinite support. And a lot of churches have that money set aside, or they're setting it aside. A lot of pastors I know support 5 church planters or more at a time, but they know that money is going to come back into their fund and they can take on others when that support drops after 2 or 3 years. So it's short term. I recommend 3 to 5 years. If pastors ask me, I recommend that. But 3 to 5 years is great. But what that gives is it gives the church planter 3 years or more to just go at it. Go knock on doors, meet people, start discipleships with people, Bible studies. And usually within 3 to 5 years, you can build a nucleus that when that support starts to drop, those families can take you on. And by the way, pastors are more sympathetic to uh, keeping support for their church planners as long as they know they need it past the 3 to 5 year mark. Because there are some difficult areas. You go into inner city Baltimore, inner city DC, these areas, and very liberal areas, you may not have the income after 5 years to have all that support drop. So pastors are more willing to say, okay, we'll continue to support you. Um, and so one thing I haven't said yet is the money for church planting is there. It's out there. Uh, there are so many more churches and pastors wanting to take on church planters, and there's so many conferences now all over the nation that raise money for church planting. It's unreal. It really is. The guys who are raising the money, and then a lot of guys starting churches now have 10, 20, $30,000 as well in the bank from these conferences that give them money to help them, start. And it's great. It's healthy. Again, it's needed and it's good to see. Now, your one question you had about how much money to raise. This is where other local pastors come in. A guy might say, I'm going to, well, let's pick one. Bernie, Texas is a church plant we're working with now south of Dallas. The church plant is coming from Arizona. So, how much does he need to live on in Bernie, Texas? Well, I know several pastors in the area. We contact them and we say, okay, what's it take to live there? What's the average house going for? What is needed? Now, the one thing that is not talked about is a church planter has to have their own health insurance. If their car breaks down, they've got to have some type of maintenance fund. So a church planter might raise a little bit more than the average assistant pastor or whatever in that area, but that's only because he's going to be the lead pastor. He doesn't have anybody, and his nucleus, it's difficult for the first few years to have a church that's willing to take up an offering to help their pastor. And we worked through that. But so some church planters are raising a little bit more than, an average youth pastor, whatever. But again, he's a lone ranger for a few years, so he needs that. One rule of thumb, if we just don't know, one rule of thumb to go by is you find the average, not the lower, not the higher, but the average rent in that area, multiply times three, add utilities and insurance, and you have a pretty good number.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if rent is 1,200, that's 3,600. If you add, say, four for utilities, that's four. And then health insurance, if his family needs 800, then you're at 4,800. That's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. And that's a good tactical way to look at it for sure, where people can just, find it, tactically wise. Yeah, we could probably talk on deputation for this whole call, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've already got another question, but I don't even want to bring it up because I know it's going to open up even a bigger discussion on it. I guess I will. There's going to be people that's going to wonder this. I know I have. How does someone get started doing deputation? What do you recommend? Cold calling, emailing?
Yeah. So it's important to start that conversation. It's important to know that deputation, whoever you call in the fall, you will probably get meetings for in the spring. So, in other words, we're going into the new year. So, a guy who starts calling right now in December, most of his meetings are going to be for the end of next year. So, you got to keep that in mind that you're going to spend probably 3 months calling and writing and all of that to set up meetings that'll be a year from then, 6 months to a year from then. So, that's why it takes sometimes 2 years to raise the support. You asked about how to get the meetings. It's usually your pastor's friends and your friends in ministry first. Then you could go to getting lists. We don't have a list, but you could get lists, from different mission boards and all of that. A lot of guys we help don't go through a mission board, not that we're anti-mission board at all. We work with all kinds of church planners who do use mission boards, but mission boards can help with that, list as well. But a lot of guys we help, they're funneling all their money through their home church, and they don't have a mission board to work with. So it's cold calling, it's getting a list, it's calling every and anybody you know or your friends know. But that's where, like your ministry, social media comes in. Once you know God's calling you to go somewhere, you can put it out there, hey, I'm available, and start making friends on social media and, this guy and that guy. And the more people see of you, the more they may have you come in. And then I recommend this. I've raised support twice. I raised support when I planted a church in Florida. And then when I came into BCPM, they could not pay me. I had to raise full support to for my family and ministry. And now I'm continuously raising money for the ministry now. So there's a couple of helps there that we recommend. One great help that I found to be really impactful early on was dropping in churches that I thought could support us, giving the pastor my prayer card and saying, "Hey, I'm in the area. Can I take you out for coffee and share my burden with you?" Almost 100% of the time, when I would do that, he would invite me back to share our burden for
Yeah.
support. Another good help is to um, find out when the mission conferences are for churches that you're trying to get into, and let them know I can be there for your mission conference. I think it's in February, March, whatever. I can be there for that if you like me to come in, even for one night, and
Yeah.
share our ministry. Boy, if you can get into mission conferences, that's almost, I can't say a guarantee, but almost a guarantee that you'll get support.
Heck
There's a
yeah.
lot of other helps though we cover.
Yeah. This is just my opinion, but I think we're gonna see a lot of this. And I really think this would be a big game changer. Most people wouldn't be willing to do it. But just my thoughts on something that would probably be really beneficial is and nobody wants to do this, and I'll get crucified for even saying this because ain't nobody, everybody's anti anything that gets your name out there. But you start building a brand on social media, on your personal profile. You start recording videos of you talking about what God's
There you
called you to
go.
do,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
start talking, just talking to everybody that follows you, and you start
Yeah.
friend requesting pastors. You keep recording videos and posting about where God's sending y'all, posting about what y'all are doing, and you get really interactive on your page, and you build a actual brand around your name and what you're doing. People are going to trust you more than you just stopping by and them not knowing you. As far as like you just calling them, calling them, hey,
Yeah.
I'm so and so.
Right.
Immediately they don't know who you are, and immediately they're already kind of standoffish. But if they can
Right.
find you online, or if they already know you online, and you'll probably raise a lot of support just by posting videos and stuff at
Yep.
churches that just want to get a part of what you're doing by watching you and
Right.
following you. But just that brand builds trust. And when somebody sees you or has been following you online, and they get a phone call from you and they're like, hey, you know what, Dalton? I actually know you. Like I
Hmm.
can't tell you how many times like people just know who I am just from
Right.
GM Baptist Outreach. They just know my name,
Yeah.
and it's just because I post a lot online, and it's not because they've ever met me or anything. They just feel like they already know me because they see me so much online. And people don't like that. No one wants to build a brand. They don't like that terminology. You don't even have to use that terminology. But the more you put yourself out there, I believe digitally is going to build a lot more trust in the day and hour we're living in.
Yeah, like you've mentioned to me before about your ministry. If people feel like they know you outside of the church, they'd be more interested in coming into the church, to see you in person because they feel like they already know you. And I tell church planners this. I say, listen, the thing that the church wants to hear the most and the pastor wants to hear the most, and they may not realize it, is they want to know your burden.
Yeah.
You share. I don't care. I do care about the quality of video and the display table and your prayer card. All that's important. But listen, you get up and you can talk about how many people live in the area, and all that, and the number of churches that are not there, and you can talk about all of that if you want to. But you share a burden. You share your burden. God's called us there. We got to get there. I was there already. I led a man to the Lord. There's no one there to disciple him. I got to get back. Please support us, at least prayerfully. Pray for us. Um, I tell them that all the time. You leave them with a genuine burden. Share that. And I'm telling you that's
Yeah.
I don't think pastors realize this, but that's what they really want to hear. They want to know this guy's called, and that calling will keep them there. But yeah,
Yeah.
so like you said, if you could do a video or several, just saying, "Hey, I want to give an update. God's getting us close. Can't wait to get there. There's people there.
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you about a lady named Susan. My wife and I met her, and she's starving for the
For
Bible.
sure.
We got to
And
get there."
and for anybody who's thinking like, "Oh, that's a good idea." Listen, it just it's simple, very simple. Let me tell you a perfect way to do it. Friend request 10 pastors a day. Post once a day or once every other day, whether it's pictures, talking about anything where people get to know you and they see your stuff, they start following you more, and then post a video a week. Video
Mm,
every other week of what you got going on, what God's calling you to do, where y'all are with the ministry, and friend request 10 pastors a day. By the end of the month, you're going to have 300 pastors. Not all of them will accept your friend request, but you'll probably have half that'll accept your friend request. And
yeah,
naturally you're going to build an audience of pastors that now are watching your stuff and seeing your stuff, and you'll have a ton of people that'll reach out just asking questions about what you're doing or commenting and liking it, and you'll be amazed at the people that'll probably get support that way. Anyways, never tried it, never seen somebody try it, but I do think that that'll be a big piece because I mean there's tons of people, social media influencers these days that are
yeah,
building businesses doing it that way. There's no reason a church planter couldn't do it, and the reason people are building businesses doing it that way is because it builds trust. People
yeah,
trust them. They
yeah,
know them, they trust them, they hear their videos and stuff all the time. That's the only reason they can do that stuff. And I think it's the same way with a preacher. I think if people can get to know you more and see your burden, just like you're saying more, and they see it more and more and more, I mean, yeah, you'll be amazed at how God can use that for somebody to support you. So
yeah,
anyhow,
definitely.
that's a
Glad you said that.
thoughtful way there. So one more question, a couple questions actually, but I know we've been here for a while, so I don't want to keep you too long. But one big thing, here's what I definitely want to talk about real quick. One big thing is, and I do want to get to what someone should have in place maybe before they launch. But here's what I want to really discuss because I think this is a big one I talk to church planners about all the time. What should the church look like when it gets started? Okay, every church is different. I get it. You can start, every church plant's different. Every church plant can start however they want. But what
Mhm.
are your recommendations on when a church gets started? Because I can't tell you how many times I've seen people burn out quickly because they're trying to do 4 services, run a bus route, and everything, and it's just him and their wife there. Okay. And I
Yeah,
was one of them guys. We had a bus route from the very beginning. I was one of the guys. Okay. I know what it's like when people try and take on too much when they cannot do it all themselves and they're going to neglect visitors that come. So in your thoughts, what have you seen that you think that sweet spot maybe looks like that can produce best results?
yeah. So, it does depend on demographics as well, because if there's a lot of families in the area you're trying to reach, and obviously having more of a family-oriented service would help with that. If it's more of an affluent area like Washington, D.C., or someplace like that where there's not a lot of families, but a lot of single people, then obviously I would recommend a little bit differently. But here's the thing. My wife and I started doing church plant retreats several years ago because there were common issues that go into every church plant that kept coming up. So even if it was a healthy start, the money was there, all of that in place, um, there were still some burnout issues that we needed to address, and we kept addressing them over and over and over. So my wife wrote on it. I wrote. So and those are some of the articles on bcpm.org as well in the resource tab. Um, but here's the thing, we've learned when you start, there's a couple of things. Preaching and teaching the word of God is the center of it all.
For sure. Yeah.
Some guys try to do so much with media and everything in the service that they're so nervous and stressed out by the time they preach that they're not feeding the flock in a healthy way.
Yeah.
They're constantly worried about, is the video working? Is this
Is
working?
the
Is that
live
working?
stream
Okay, yeah.
on?
So listen, this is the bottom line for that. If you don't have people to do it, don't do it.
Don't do it.
And I
Yeah.
mean that. One of the most common ways to burn your wife out, because she is your cheerleader. When you start out, she is encouraging you. Hopefully, she is. If she's not, then we've got other issues. But nonetheless, hopefully, she's encouraging you. Yes, she's stressed out too. Everybody's stressed. You won't sleep, nights ahead. And so there's a lot of pressure and all that. But this is the thing. This had happened to me. Um, when I started, we like had all these families. Okay. So I'm like, oh, we need a junior church. My wife knew that. We talked about it. So guess who led it? My wife. Oh, you know what? We have so many babies now. We need more of a nursery. We had a nursery. So guess who led that? My wife. Okay, we're going to do some big outreaches now, and we're going to have food involved. I need somebody to oversee all the food preparation, all that. Well, my wife volunteered because she wants to help, right? Well, your wife starts doing that too many times, and she doesn't know it, and you don't know it, but now she's burning out. And it's not because she doesn't want to do it anymore, but she's so stressed and burned out, she can't do it anymore. Okay, so now you have all these ministries you're doing that you and your wife are doing. You can't do them anymore. So if you go backwards on them, it looks like you're failing. It looks like you're going backwards now because you. So my advice is don't even start them until you have the personnel, the volunteers, the trained leaders to do it. That's that's difficult for a church planter because like most of us, when we start out, you'll have families come with teenagers, and they're like, well, we'll come back when you have a teenage ministry, or they'll come with juniors or whatever. We'll come back when you have a junior church, whatever. And your gut feeling is to say, well, we got to have one then to keep them. Not necessarily. Let God build his church. It's difficult to train people. So let your wife know that she has spiritual gifts. Let her know where God's leading her to help in the ministry. Because where God has gifted you and you serve, you're going to enjoy it. It'll be a joy. And she won't burn out as quickly. Another one is the nursery. I mean, when we started, we had, our two kids and so on. So my wife was in there all the time. She felt disjointed from everyone else because she was there Sunday night, Wednesday night, and so I just said, okay, we're going to have the nursery set up, and you can be in there one service a week, but people can take their babies in, change them, watch it in there, listen to it, whatever. Come back into service. I don't care if they come back and forth. I don't care. I want you to be in the service. I want you to sit here. I want you to be with the people, get fed. So, what does it look like when you first start out? I know we've all heard of simple church and people have written on it and all of that, but that is really where it comes down to. Uh, Singing is scriptural, prayer is scriptural, preaching is center. Preaching is where it's at. You feed the flock, they will grow, and you will grow leaders through feeding the flock. Now, how many services? Well, we know this biblically. Doctrine is the glue that's going to bind and hold that church together. So the more scripture that people can get, the more preaching and teaching they can get, the stronger that church is going to be. And by the way, I don't mind if you start with just a Sunday morning. I don't mind. I want to hear from you. This is what God wants me to do. I'm fine with that then. Don't do it just because other people are doing it or whatever. Don't do it
Yeah,
because it's just practical. But
for sure.
if you have other services, like we had a Sunday night service, and our Sunday night was larger. We had like 100 and some people in our Sunday night service, where our morning service was like 60, 70 people. And that was because there were a couple of churches in town that did not have a Sunday night service, but people weren't getting fed there. So they didn't want to leave their church. So they came to ours on Sunday night, and we were renting a gym. And so we actually had like family night every Sunday night after the service. We had finger foods. We had kids could play. We had family volleyball. We had men's basketball. We had all these activities Sunday night after the service. And I loved that.
What time was y'all doing y'all Sunday night services?
We did it at 6.
6.
Well, I
Yeah,
take that back. I take that back. We changed it to 5:30 to incorporate everything I just said.
for sure. Yeah, so yeah, I'll give you my thoughts on this. Just my thought. I agree with everything you said, by the way. I agree with it. Matter of fact, I like the Sunday night thing you mentioned about having finger foods after every Sunday night, calling it a family night. I'm like, man, we need to do that at our church now. And so that's why I was asking what the service times was, because I was like, we do ours at 6 too, and we're about to get on this new property, so we'll have plenty of room to do stuff
Yeah.
like that after church. So I'm thinking Man, that might be something cool to do. Call it family night, and because our Sunday nights are prayer. We have a service, but it's prayer oriented. Like everybody prays after
Mm.
the preaching. It don't matter
I
if
see.
you felt led to pray. Everybody gets down and finds a spot, and we pray and seek the Lord. And so our Sunday night service is really if I was to say, the crux of the spiritual power I believe in our church, and the Lord's really blessed ever since we've started that, focusing on prayer on Sunday nights. So I say all that to say this though, if I could go back, this is Brother Dalton's opinion. This is not Brother Jeremy. This is not. If I could go back and start our church, I would only start with a Sunday morning service. Like I
Mhm.
wouldn't start with all these other services. Like we tried to. When we started, we tried to. And your church, I don't know when y'all started the Sunday night, or if y'all have always had it, or if y'all always had a good crowd on Sunday night. But this is just what our experience, and this ain't knocking anything that you said. I agree with everything you said. But we had a lot of people tell us that, no, y'all need to start a Sunday night because a lot of churches don't have Sunday nights. You have a lot of people come to Sunday nights. And then we had people say, oh, they need that Wednesday night. That's the tip of the tent in the middle of the week. They need that. Y'all need that Wednesday night. And I'm like, well, snaps. Okay, so we need Sunday morning, Sunday night, and then Sunday school. And then you'll hear people say, that Sunday school, that you need that Sunday school, to disciple and grow. And I'm like, all right, well, let me start a Sunday school. And I was preparing these 4 messages a week, and there would be a lot of those services. Nobody would even show up because it started with just me and my wife. Okay. Now,
Mhm.
if we would have started maybe different with a core team or started with like a big group or something, it might would have been a different story. But we started with just me and my wife. We had trying to have a big service, launch service, door knock. And we had like 40 some people there, but most of those were people that came that supported family and stuff. They weren't a bunch of people from the community. Might have had like
Right.
five or so the next Sunday morning. So, the first year of our church was, I'm talking just beating the doors. I was working full time. It was one of those things to where
Wow.
we didn't see our first faithful family join the church till like 6 months after we started the church.
Hmm.
And after year two for us, we started really growing. We started really blessing stable, faithful, spiritual minded people, and just people getting saved, disciples growing, preachers called to preach. It's amazing. We probably got like, five preachers in our church, and we've had preachers sent out from our church. And so, it's amazing what the Lord's done, but our growth didn't really start till after 2 years. But
Hmm.
I say that to say this from what if it was me, if I was to go start a church somewhere right now, I would only start with a Sunday morning service, and everything else would be outreach, knocking
Hmm.
doors on Wednesday nights or whatever you got to do. All these other services, I would just be doing some kind of outreach, going to giving out tracts at the restaurant or whatever it might be. I would be trying to build relationships and do outreach, and everybody who starts coming to the Sunday morning service, I would be doing a discipleship course with them, a 14-week, whether it's just a time period discipleship course, an hour before the Sunday morning service, something along those lines. That's just what I would do. And the only reason I would do that, and again, every church is different, every church can start different. Just from when we started our church, like what discouraged me most was not the Sunday morning services. What discouraged me most is I would encourage people to come to Sunday nights and there'd be zero people there. What discouraged me most was Wednesday night services, nobody be there. And those kind of stuff, that kind of stuff will discourage your faith. And I'm not saying those things are wrong to do, but what I am saying is I think people get burnt out trying to do a traditional church structure right when they
Hmm.
start a new church plant. We were even trying to run vans. I was even trying
Yeah.
to run a van route. I had visitors coming, and then I couldn't visit with them afterwards because I was having some kids from the community I were picking up. It's a
Yep.
wonderful thing, but I do feel like you try and take on too much than you can do.
Yeah. Don't let the phantom pastor syndrome affect you. It affected me. I felt like, well, all my supporting churches, my pastor, I mean, I felt pressure that I had to mimic what they already had. And when they're 10, 15, 20-year-old church, right?
Yeah,
And then there's this thought that if I don't have it, then we won't reach people. Um, I tell you, more and more, it's so clear that the Lord should lead you to do what you believe God is leading you to do in your area.
yeah,
I don't believe even the seven churches of Macedonia in the Bible, they were not the same.
they're different. Yeah,
They had the same Bible, same message, same Christ, same, salvation. But we went through about 30 years. I really like studying history, but especially in independent fundamental Baptist history. And we did though. We had about 30 years of, you were in lockstep. Everybody had the same form, and that was the form. If you deviated from that form, I'm old enough now, I'm 52. I can remember when some guys would go to a Thursday night midweek instead of a Wednesday night. And it was almost like, why are you going liberal?
Yeah, you're going
You know?
contemporary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's such a healthy thing now to know you can be independent fundamental Baptist, believe the right way, and have the right spirit and all of that, but be led by the Lord. Let God lead you, and there's different, like you said, overseas, especially in different areas like India and so on. We've helped with there's things are done a little bit differently because of the area that they're at, and they have to pray through it. They have to let God lead them. So
Yeah.
again, I'm not against, I always tell people this, the early church met every day.
Yeah.
So are we to do that? If you want to do that, that's fine. I was just in a church in Texas where a pastor said, we're starting 30 days of revival services next month. And I said, what? He's like, yeah, we're having a service
Amen.
every day for 30 days. And we're asking people to turn off all their TV and social media and all that. And for 30 days, we're going to fast, we're going to pray, we're going to come to a room. And I said, tell me how that works out afterwards.
Yeah, let me know after week two. Let me know what's going on. But yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, and so I guess it just boils down to just don't feel like obligated to
Yeah,
operate like somebody else does or like someone else
right,
think you should do. Man, there's so much
right.
pressure among especially let's just say Baptist, independent Baptist circles these days. There's so much pressure to operate, the way
Sure.
somebody else does. I mean, we still don't have Wednesday night services now. People would
Yeah.
crucify me for that, but we have a Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Sunday school and a discipleship course. And our church, to me, is thriving spiritually. We have great spiritual minded preachers being called. And I mean, Wednesday nights, I'll do a Bible study with some of our preachers, like a deeper, doctrinal Bible study with some of the preachers in our church on some Wednesday
Mhm.
nights. We don't go every Wednesday night, but so like our church to me is doing just fine without a Wednesday night service. Not that I'm against it. We always normally meet on Wednesday nights, whether it's sometimes we'll go out door knocking. Like with the days getting darker earlier now, it's harder for all the men to go out door knocking, after they get off
Sure.
work and stuff. But as far as that goes, like we still try and do stuff on Wednesday nights, but it's we don't have a traditional service, and I don't feel bad about it at all. But I know some people would look at me like I'm, like that's a terrible thing to do. But I just don't
Right.
feel the Lord. And when the Lord tells me to do it, we'll definitely do it. We'll
Yeah.
start one, but I
Right.
just haven't felt that impression that so.
There's something about being independent Baptist that makes us independent.
Yeah. If only we could get back to that
Mhm.
independent piece, the way it was meant from the beginning, for sure.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Awesome. So I know it's getting late. We might need to make a part two of this because honestly, I feel like there's a lot of other questions I had. But man, so I feel like we've talked about a lot of good subjects that maybe will help people as far as just giving an eye open. One other thing I wanted to discuss, again, we might need to make I wanted to discuss launching a church, the
Mhm.
process of launching, leading up to it, some of that stuff. Maybe we'll make a whole separate video. Are you okay with that? Maybe getting on another
I
time?
am, and there's a lot so that's where our ministry shifts from just mainly consultation to now information with the consultation. About 10 months out from the church launching, it goes into a very intense timeline checklist. We have a special app with all the projects, and I would love that might be a good lengthy discussion there.
Yeah, so if everybody watching this, we'll make another video on that and we'll discuss, timeline leading up to launching, things to do to launch. We'll
Mhm.
discuss, even core team stuff, things of that nature, because that's different things out there, teachings as far as that goes. And we'll discuss all that. We'll discuss outreach as well and all that kind of stuff leading up to a service, launching a service. We'll
And
do that on
even
a whole separate call because that will be a lengthy one, I'm sure.
and then even after the church starts, there we have a 5-year guide that helps a church plant through the first 5 critical years, and that might be even a great help too, because there are some definite pitfalls that you need to avoid, and some strengthening steps that I think need to be implemented early on. But I'd love to share those with you as well.
For sure, yeah. No, we'll make a whole separate video on that. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. as far as closing, there was one I was going to say about pitfalls to avoid, but I guess that would kind of be, tie into the launching and the finishing, afterwards. So yeah, we'll keep that one for the next one as well. But anyways, well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up then. And I've enjoyed it, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed
Sure,
discussing some
I've
of this
enjoyed it
stuff
as well.
because it's amazing. Even me, like, as far as deputation, like I've just started learning about how people are doing deputation since we've been
Mhm.
working with church plants and all this stuff with GM Baptist Outreach now. It's kind of like a lot of this world's new to me, just listening to what guys are doing. I just never
Mhm.
knew any of that. And I know like church planters that start churches, there's a lot or that, are coming out of a church, maybe a church that isn't a planted church and the pastor knows
Mhm.
nothing about church planting.
Sure.
This is all new information they're having to learn and figure out. And so
Right.
I think we've covered a lot of good information on this call, but the next one, the part two video we'll do, we'll definitely discuss actually launching, steps leading up to launching, having a big day for the launch, or things of that nature. So, but with that
Sure.
being said, is there anything you want to end with or anything?
No, it's a privilege to be on here. And again, we um, we are there to assist, to work. We don't like to say that we come alongside a church planter and his pastor. I like to say we come inside. I work under the local church pastor as an administrative assistant to help them through the entire process of planting a church. And so, if we can be a help to anyone that's listening or know someone that's planting a church, no matter what stage they are. Now, if a church planter calls and says, "Can you help us start?" We start next Sunday. There's only so much we can help you with at that moment.
Yeah.
But especially the early on stages, we love to help. BCPM would love to help.
For sure. We'll put a link in the description for their ministry and everything. And absolutely. And I'm sure if anybody, I'm sure they can find your contact information on that website. But if y'all want to get in contact with Brother Jeremy, you can also reach out to us. We'll make sure to get y'all in contact with him. All right.
Sure,
Well, that sounds good. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and I'll get scheduled with you. We'll set up another call maybe next week or something, and get it dropped, and I'll kind of tie these two videos together. So
sure.
appreciate it, man. Well, you have a
Thank
blessed rest of
you.
your day.
You too. We'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir. Bye bye.